Hello everybody, and welcome back to the inn. The Ungoro floodgates have opened, and the cards are starting to pour in. As to not waste any time, I am just going straight, face first, into this discussion. So, the first card that we have for our discussion tonight, / today, or whenever you get to view this, is Explore Ungoro. It's a 2-cost Warrior Epic with the effect of replace your deck with copies of Discover a Card. As explained during the stream, it was said that this card basically is Raven Idol for your deck. Now, I'm taking a look at this in 2 separate arenas here. In the constructed side and on the arena side. On the constructed side, I don't think this is going to see high-end play because it becomes, the card in your deck becomes just discover, and you're going between 3 cards, and you're trying to figure out, okay, which one do I need for this situation? No. That is not something that constructed people or constructed players will want to do. However, I take a look at this in the arena sense, and there's a lot of fun and exploration to be had with Explore Ungoro. So, I can see this being something that people dig in with one of their 3 choices in arena. Bulb.
My opinion of this is pretty much what my opinion of Renounced Darkness was, which is, I don't think it's viable, really, as a card. However, Renounce had an edge on this card. Renounce replaced your entire deck, or your class cards anyway, but it also discounted the cards. In this one, you're going to have a 1-cost Discover card, and then the card that you picked will actually not be discounted. Now, maybe you'll have an edge and it'll be nice, but that's actually a huge tempo loss, especially in Constructed. Now, keep in mind this only replaces your deck, so any cards, if you're actually going to run one of these decks, any cards that you have in your hand when you play this will stay the same. So you want to consider that, I think, during the mulligan phase. However, like I said, I do not think this is viable for Constructed at all. I don't think it's a very viable card. However, I will admit, if I get one of these, I will experiment with this. I will have fun with this, because I just have to see what I can do with this. What kind of wacky shenanigans I can get into. Because ignoring how unadvisable this card is in a deck, ignoring the huge tempo loss, holy crap, Eddie, the amount of stuff you can get into with this card.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of shenanigans and a lot of memes that can be done with it. And especially, like, if you want to where it's like, I'm gonna do, like, I'll keep a hold of this, and, like, I'll keep a hold of Yogg if I want to make a bonkers Yogg
Oh
deck.
my word! I didn't think of that!
You get to do that with, like, Yogg, and if you want to, just to kind of, like, speed up the draws, to be able to get more, you can also keep your hands on Auctioneer.
Auctioneer, yeah.
And then just start going speed bonkers with it.
Maybe if you have Elise the Trailblazer, which we'll get to later, have her in your hand, you know. All sorts of things. Or if you want to create your curve, that way you can play this and do some curve stuff as well. Yeah. All in all, I don't think this is really going to see any constructed play. But I do think there are people who experimented with Renounced Darkness. I think there will be people who will experiment with this. And who knows? If this goes off correctly, you'll end up having a bonkers deck. So yeah, I don't think it's viable for Constructed, but I do think I think this is a card that's mainly there to have some fun, and yeah, I'm gonna mess with this card if I get it. I won't craft it, but if I draw it from a pack, I will mess around with this card.
Don't let your memes be memes, people. Don't let your memes be memes.
You do know I love my meme decks.
Yes, I do.
So next up is Tortollan Shellraiser, which is a 4-cost 2/6 priest minion with taunt and the death rattle. Give a random friendly minion +1/+1. This card is amazing, and this is going to be something we're going to actually see theme-wise as we go into further into this expansion. Holy crap! They're giving priests some amazing cards. This is a really solid taunt minion. Not only that, but has a death rattle that's pretty much guaranteed to go off. And if you're running death rattle priest with Awaken the Makers, this is definitely one you want to run. Even if you're not, this is a pretty solid 4-drop for priest. Especially with priest in standard, we're losing our Twilight Guardians. This can kind of fill that niche, and plus the fact that it will buff up one of your minions. You can keep it heal. You can buff it up yourself, or keep it healed up if you want. I think regardless of whether you're playing Death Rattle or not, this is just a very solid minion, and I do think we're going to see it played. I don't think it's going to be a must play in every priest deck, but I do think it's going to see a lot of play.
I'm looking at this, and it's like, this is one of those just taunt wall stoppers that just comes out when it comes to aggro. So it's just like, it is very good. I give it that.
Yeah, and you're right. We actually are seeing a lot of cards that stop aggro in Trex. I'm not sure if they were direct counters to the aggro meta, or it's just really fortuitous timing. But we're seeing a lot of cards that kind of are going to put the brakes on the aggro meta.
Yeah. So with this, the give a random friendly minion +1/+1. It depends on what you may have in play at the time to make it to where you do get the benefit of the death rattle. So if anything, yes, we're going to see this in Awaken the Makers decks, or like whatever they want to call the new priest death rattle. They may just go back to calling it N'Zoth Priest. So for now, I'll call it N'Zoth Priest, because this thing is just too good to not include in not only that deck archetype, but just in general. Now, it does have competition with Shifting Shade in the 4-cost slot, but each of them give you different options to play with. So,
plus, if you're playing Death Rattle Priest, why wouldn't you run both of them?
Different strokes for different blokes. That's all I can say. But I assume that you've gotten all out what you wanted with Tortollan Shellraiser?
Yeah.
Okay.
Solid.
So, let's shift into the Warlock Quest legendary Lakkari Sacrifice. 1-cost. Quest is requirement to discard 6 cards, and your reward is the Nether Portal. The Nether Portal allows for you to, at the end of each turn, to get a 3/2 imp on your board.
Actually, technically, it spawns 3/2 imps on either side of the Nether Portal, and the spell it gives you the spell, which costs 5 mana to play.
Yes.
Nether Portal ends up taking a slot on your board, and then it's going to spawn these 2-cost 3/2 imps on either side of it.
So, for the Nether Portal, it's going to be uninteractive. I do know that part. And it's one of those things to where it's just, thinking in Magic terms, it's like an artifact. So, with the Nether Portal, you're summoning 3/2 imps constantly. So with Warlock, it's going to have a constant board presence if they decide to run the Nether Portal quest. At this point, I know both of us have discussed it just a little bit, but this is definitely one of those meta-defining cards because discard, or Disco Lock as it's called, is already a prominent deck type now. This just boosts it and makes it even stronger. So, Bulb.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I agree it's meta-defining. One of the big things I had noticed was ever since the Small Time Buccaneer nerf was that Disco Lock has actually been rising a little bit in prominence. I've been seeing it more and more, and this is going to push it over the edge. I expect to see Disco Lock a lot more. I'm not among the community, the members of the community who's panicking, oh no, Disco Lock will be everywhere, whatever shall we do? I think there's going to be all sorts of other decks played. We'll probably see Zoo played a bit, because I'm not sure every Warlock player wants to play a discard-focused deck, but I think we're going to see a lot more Disco Lock. And there's also a lot of crying out of, oh no, it continuously spawns minions. Control is dead. Wham! Boo-hoo! We cannot learn how to actually tech decks. Look, guys, basically the control that players in the community want is the uninteractive, boring control that does not have a win condition. It's why those type of control decks do not fare well against something like Jade Golems, because just a control deck that's only built to counter whatever your opponent does. If your opponent is able to consistently outvalue you, then you're going to lose the game in the long run. You have to be proactive at some point, and you basically have to learn, if you're playing that type of control deck, you have to learn when to be proactive and when to be defensive. It's something that it's one of the things I had to keep in mind, Eddie, when I played my spell damage deck. There are some decks where I could just be reflexive, build out a certain win con, and then just burst and just do a quick burst. There are other decks I had to be a lot more proactive because I knew if I just laid back, I was going to lose. I will give you an example. One deck that I always had a problem with as a spell damage mage, which was a bit of a control deck, was against Control Warrior. Because Control Warrior could consistently outvalue me and outpace me. So I had to change my game plan up. If you're running a control deck, especially with some of these infinite value decks that are coming out, I do not think that infinite value decks are bad for the meta. I think that they can be very good for the meta. I think they're very interesting. But if you're running a control deck, you need to keep that in mind that at some point you may be going up against a deck that can outvalue you, which means that it will beat you in the long run. That means if you think you're going up against that type of deck, you have to be prepared to be proactive, and you have to have an end game. You have to have a game plan for how you're just going to completely turn the tables on them. If you do not have that, you will lose. It's the same for the Nether Portal. They will outvalue a lot of decks in the long run. However, those imps are kind of tiny, and if you can just hold them back long enough and just keep your own board presence and push against them, Disco Lock in general is going to punish its user until they can play that quest. Use that to your advantage and push when you need to, and you should be fine. This is going to be a meta-defining deck. I do not think it will be an unbeatable deck. People will just have to learn how to play around it, which is what is healthy in a card game.
Plus, if anything, I was gonna say, plus, if anything, Disco Lock has to discard cards
Oh my
to
word!
get their effect to work.
They could end up discarding the wrong cards. But I've actually thought about how the new Disco Lock could work. It's actually very exciting, and I normally don't get excited about something like Disco Lock because I hate those type of mechanics. But when we get a little bit later in, I'll actually tell you about why I'm actually excited, and I might try the deck out myself because there's actually some neat mechanics going around this time. This is a very interesting deck, I think, that will be played. I think it'll be interesting to see it kind of take its place in the meta, and people will just have to get out of their heads that there are certain deck archetypes or type of decks that should not be dominant in the meta. Aggro should not be super dominant in the meta. Control should not be super dominant in the meta. To be honest, Eddie, I think mid-range should be your dominant type of deck because you're pretty much your middle of the road deck. And that also leaves some room for combo and control and aggro. But if the meta goes too far aggro or too far control, something is wrong with the meta. And all these people whining about, oh, control is dead. What they're trying not to say, but what they're implying is they want a control heavy aggro, control heavy meta. They want the meta so far in the other way that's unhealthy. So, just like I thought Jades are kind of interesting, and I think in the long run are healthy for the game, I think this is very interesting and healthy for the game. It just is going to be up to the community to determine whether everybody will be able to tech and actually know how to play against these decks in the long run.
I'm ready for it, if anything.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Next up, we have a card that goes along with this. It is Lakkari Felhound. It's a 4-cost, 3/8 demon minion for Warlock. It has Taunt and the battle cry, discard 2 random cards. I think this is about right. It's a good 4-cost Taunt. It's very strong. It's going to shut aggro down. And yes, the battle cry is very steep, but for a 3/8 Taunt, that's kind of what you want. At least it's not destroying a mana crystal or something like that. I think that people will run Lakkari Felhound. I don't think Lakkari Felhound by itself is meta defining, but in conjunction with Lakkari Sacrifice, it's going to be one of the main things that pushes Disco Lock further. Maybe allow them to take a more mid-range approach. Maybe they want to continue being aggro, but I think that they will run this. Mainly because they know that having to continuously draw cards and discard cards will make them very vulnerable. So Lakkari Felhound will kind of protect their life while they set up their end game with the quest card.
Oh, Lakkari Felhound. I look at you and of course, I see you as this big, beefy taunt stopper. Because just aggro and just, with you being a demon as well, being able to be crystal weavered, just laughing the whole way and being a force. So I think really this is a good card. It's going to see play not only in disco/discard Warlock, but I just think it'll see play in general because of just how well it can be played. I also believe, if anything, that depending on what else we get within the Warlock set, it may also tick up higher as far as its value goes.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know it will be played in Demon decks. It will be played in Disco Lock. I'm not sure whether your other typical Warlock decks will want to play it. I guess it depends on the deck. Mainly because for them, the drawback may be too steep. If you're playing something like Zoo or whatever, and you need a 4-cost, 4-cost taunt, they may go with something a little bit more typical. But I think for a Warlock deck that wants that kind of synergy, they'll run it. But I don't think it's going to be run in every Warlock deck.
Plus, if you also think about this going into Arena, this is a solid 4-drop.
It is very solid, but again, huge drawback.
Huge drawback, yes. So it's one of those, like, do I take it? Risk-reward sort of give-and-take pulls here. But if anything, am ready to move on. Are you?
I'm good.
Okay. Arcanologist. 2 cost. 2/3. Mage exclusive common. With the battle cry, draw a secret from your deck. Oh, secret mage, oh, secret mage. How plentiful are your secrets? It's got 1 more health than Mad Scientist. It allows for you to be able to play on tempo / on curve with a secret to be able to play on the field. The better question being is, at this point, what other secrets, like, what are the secrets that we're going to want to play with this? Because, like, right now, we've got Mirror Entity, Counterspell, Ice Barrier, Ice Block, Spellbender, Potion of Polymorph. And that's 6 just right there. Plus, however many others, like, we may get 1 or 2 in this set. So, with something along the side, or at least along with Medivh's Valet, will Arcanologist see play? I'm going out on the limb, and I'm going to say that she won't be played, because I don't think people will want to play Secret Mage. But I will say that if something is announced and / released, I will change my mind on Arcanologist. Well,
she's going to see play. Just for the fact that, yeah, I'm not sure how prominent Secret Mage is going to be in the meta, but if you're running at least 2 different types of secrets in your deck, you're going to want Arcanologist to get to the secret you want right away. This allows you to pretty much get to your key secret a lot sooner, and I think I really didn't consider that until I was like looking at a lot of the discussion, and I actually agree with it. I think more players are going to use this to look for specific secrets than a secret mage will use it just to get to a secret in general.
Yeah. I could see something like Reno Mage in Wild. Just, okay, this is 1 card I want in my deck. This is solid 2-drop just to yank out that Ice Block. Drop, go.
Well, not only that, but let's say if you want to get to your Ice Block or your Barrier or whatever, so Freeze Mage could use it.
That is true as well.
Something else is, like I said, if you're just running at least 2 different types of secrets, this is very useful. It doesn't matter what mage deck it is. If you're playing some sort of tempo deck, and you're looking for whatever the secret is, Eddie, this is going to be useful. I think you're going to see this a lot more than you think you will.
I will be happily wrong.
I don't think it's going to be played in it. I'm not sure that Secret Mage is going to be played as much. If so, it does have the synergy. But I think that you're going to see it in a lot of non-Secret Mage decks, just because they're going to be trying to get to a specific secret. So, yeah, it's going to see play. I'm not sure I would call it meta-defining, but I do think that it's going to slip in, this card is slipping into a lot of people's radars. I think it's going to see a lot more play than you think it will. So, next up, we have Elise the Trailblazer. Elise the Trailblazer is a 5-cost, 5/5 legendary with the battle cry: shuffle a sealed Ungoro pack into your deck. Basically, when you get this, it's a 2-cost spell. It basically opens up a pack, kind of an Ungoro pack, just full of just Ungoro cards, similar to if you would actually buy a pack. However, I believe the pack actually has better chances of opening up an epic or a neutral. So basically, you're getting 5 Angora cards. You're basically getting a spell that 2-cost spell that gives you 5 Angora cards in your hand. This is pretty good. I'm not sure what archetypes will use them. I think a lot of different decks will use this card. But it's pretty exciting. I'm really interested in experimenting with this card. I think we're going to see this card a lot. I would not really call this card meta-defining, but I think that people are going to be experimenting with this card a lot to see which deck she fits in, which deck she doesn't, and just kind of seeing what they want to do. Kind of like what they did with the past Elise.
Just for one thing, because you did say 1 epic and 1 neutral. It was just to have the correction there. It's higher rarities are a lot more common.
I said it had a higher. I said it had a higher chance to pull out epics and legendaries. Basically, you're more likely to see epics and legendaries than you normally would.
But you said neutral, though.
No. This is a neutral card, but like she will give you Ungoro cards. It's like opening a pack. You can get cards that don't belong to your class. This is not discover 5 Ungoro cards. This is you open up an Ungoro pack. This pack has a greater chance of having epics and legendaries, which means you're more likely to have an epic or a legendary. And you're going to have 5 free cards in your hand. Was that clear?
That is perfectly clear. Thank you, my good sir.
Okay.
So, if anything, I can see something like Casino Mage potentially making a return, because it's just like, hey, here we go. Drop the 5 cost, we're losing Azure Drake, and bring 5 cards into our hand, and just play whatever. With her, you get, of course, the 5 cards, and it does bring about at least a little bit of fun with her. I can see it being definitely being used in experiments with. She's going to be good. And with her in Wild as well, oh man. Just think Bran plus Elise the Trailblazer and Elise for being able to have the Golden Monkey.
Dude, you're not gonna want to. You do not want to brand this one. You will burn cards. Actually, no, wait, no, you won't. Never mind, because she gave. That was shuffle 2 packs. I am stupid.
Hang on a minute.
I will go into this corner now and cry really salty tears.
Good job, Bob. You just didn't think for a second. Wait. But yeah, I could see her just going wild with that. So, are we good on Elise?
Yeah, I think, because I know you've mentioned, Bob, you can use this in this deck or this deck. I'm not sure which decks I'm going to put her in yet. It's definitely, I'm going to look at my deck list, I think, when she comes out, and I'll consider. And I'll go from there. I do know I want to experiment with this card. I am excited about this card. I just don't know where she belongs yet.
That one will definitely come up. So, I believe we can shift to Golakka Crawler. It's a 2-cost, 2/3 neutral rare with the battle cry, destroy a pirate and gain +1/+1.
That's a very hungry crab.
It's also a beast. And it's also hilarious because, about a month ago, or at least when the Mean Trees of Gadgetzan came out, this would have been a perfect / grand card. Now, it's you can see it being out, and you can kind of feel Pirate Warrior shaking in its boots a little bit. Because it already got hit with the nerf bat once because of Small Time Buck being reduced to 1 health. And then I see the people who are talking oh, hey, look, you can Golakka Crawler your own pirate and be able to have a 3/4 on your board. You're not gonna do that with Golakka Crawler if you are Pirate Warrior. Pirate Warrior is too synergistic and way too speedy and wanting to hit you in the face as hard and as fast as possible to want to go, you know, I'm going to take one of the synergistic cards on my board, eat it, just so I can have a 3-4. That's stupid, dumb, and unintuitive. Get that thought out of your head. This is for people who want to counter those bloody pirates. And if anything, if you're smart, you're not going to waste it on something as lowly as flippin' Patches or the South Sea Deckhand. You're going to go on Bloodsail Raider, or you're going to hit the South Sea Captain to be able to get rid of it. Or you may want to get rid of their 4-cost 3/3 taunt, but I can't think of the name right off the top of my head. That's what this bad boy is going to be used for. Bulb.
Yeah, you pretty much nailed a lot of this. This is a direct pirate counter. And it's pretty much this is going to be one of the many things besides all these taunts that's pretty much, I think, going to be shutting down Pirate Warrior. I think there's going to be probably still... It's going to shut down Pirate Warrior so that pretty much only the people who really like to play Pirate Warrior will play Pirate Warrior. Because you always have those people who actually really did enjoy the deck. And you know what? I want those people to enjoy the deck. I want those people to play it. Because those are the people that when the deck rotates in the wild, they're going to continue playing their deck because they love playing their deck. It's the people who are just playing the deck because it's cheap and easy, and because they just want a cheap and easy win, that this will basically push them away from Pirate Warrior, basically making sure that only that people who like the deck continue to play it. I think this is healthy for the game, and you're absolutely right. Pirate Warrior will not want to run this card, even though theoretically it would end up with a big minion. There's a lot of things that happen theoretically. And the reason I say and the reason I'm emphasizing this is because there's a lot of people in the community who can't seem to get it through their head that certain decks run in certain ways. And before you open up your big mouth to say how this about a card being too powerful, or this is how this will work, or this is how that will work, you need to understand how certain classes and how certain decks want to run. Because then you're going to understand how a card is going to affect the classes. We're going to get. I think we're going to have discussions on some of this stuff a lot later. But Eddie pretty much nailed it down with Pirate Warrior. Pirate Warrior is an aggro deck, which means that their priority is to hit you in the face and to pretty much get you down as quickly as possible. Golakka Crawler runs counter to that mindset. They're not going to want to get rid of a pirate. They will not want to get rid of their pirates just so there's a 3/4 that has to wait a whole turn to hit you in the face. That's a waste for them. Not when they can put out a Frothing Berserker, which while it has to wait, it's going to be really freaking big by the time it does hit you in the face. Or they can put out a Korkron Elite or any sort of really huge pirate. Why play Golakka Crawler when you have a Bloodsail Raider? It really doesn't make sense. So no. Pirate Warrior is not going to run this because their deck is
too synergistic.
That's not what I want. That's what I want to say. The deck is already their deck is boiled down to exactly the cards they want. They've already figured out how their deck is already optimized. Is what I want to say. The deck is already optimized. There's no reason they're going to throw a Golakka Crawler into the mix. So no, Pirate Warrior is just interested in the weapons, which is used to hit you in the face. They're interested in these pirates, which are to get out patches and actually synergize with their weapons, which are to hit you in the face, and other charge minions, or something like Berserker, which just will get big. So yeah, they're not interested in Crawler. There may be there may be a few people who will try running this in Pirate Warrior because they don't understand how the deck works. And really, those are the people you're trying to counter in the first place. So, yeah, I think this is pretty much just a pirate counter. This is all it's going to be used for. And Pirate Warrior is not going to want to run this. And we're going to see less and less of Pirate Warrior. So, good job. This is what we need. So up next, we have Tar Creeper, which is a 3-cost 1/5 taunt minion, which has +2 attack on your opponent's turn. Which means, on your opponent's turn, it's a 3/5 taunt for 3. This is a very good card. Yeah, when you attack with it, you're not going to want to attack minions. You're probably just going to attack the face. That way, you can keep the integrity of the health. If you do attack minions, it's probably going to be like a 1/1 or something. But the idea is for it to be mainly a defensive card, and as a defensive card, its stats are a lot better than your baseline of Ironfur Grizzly, which is a 3/3 taunt. This is a very good taunt card. I can see so. It's definitely going to be useful, especially against an aggro meta. We're getting a lot of really good defensive cards, which means that mid-range can actually start to prosper a little bit. So I'm actually excited. This is a very good card, and it's, you have to get out of your mind that you're going to be going offensive with this card. You're pretty much going defensive. You're probably if they put up their own wall, whatever, you're probably not going to attack a lot. Might go face every once in a while, but otherwise, it pretty much is there to throw up a barrier in your opponent's direction. And, yeah, I like it. Good card.
I am putting this little bugger in Buff Paladin. I want to buff this bitch as big as I can make it. Because it's already got a big butt at 5. So let's just buff it even more with Smuggler's Run for 6. Let's buff it even more with the 2-cost Grime Streeter to make it a 7. It's a 3/7 right now. And then on my opponent's turn, it has 2 attack. So now we're looking at a 5/7 for 3. I like Tar Creeper. And it's even outside of the Buff Paladin idea. Just being a general 3-cost stopper, it's good. It really is. Are we good on Tar Creeper?
I think we're good on Tar Creeper.
Dinosize! It's an 8-cost Paladin Epic. Set a minion's attack and health to 10. Alright, so first thing comes first. I already see it. I can feel that it's a meme card. But hear me out. Ivory Knight. Being able to give yourself 8 health. And making your opponent have to sit there and go, did he pick Lay on Hands? Or did he pick Dinosize? It's a great mind game card. If you can keep a Silverhand Recruit on your board alive for 1 turn, next turn play Dinosize, 10 damage to face, or being able to take out like a taunt creature or whatever. Or, if you really want to get super memey, Stone Tusk Boar / Patches plus Dinosize for 9, 10 damage to face.
Or a very big angry chicken.
Or a very big angry chicken, for that matter. And if anything, this is another one of those nutty cards for Yogg. So I'm going to turn it over to Bulb.
It's an interesting card. I'm going to give you that, and you're absolutely right as far as Ivory Knight. But really, I can't really think of many decks that are going to really use this card. Not any of the Paladin decks that we've seen a lot. Because if you're running Buffetin, which I think Buffetin's going to try to make a comeback maybe with a mid-range meta. Buffetin's not going to want to run this because their whole goal is to get minions that are much bigger than this. Why in the world would they run this? Because it kind of runs counterintuitive to them just casting all this buff stuff on their hand. I don't know. I really can't see many Paladin decks actually outright running this. Because depending on the deck, there are a lot better options. So
yeah,
I think it's going to be a niche card. But and maybe a few people are going to run decks maybe around this, like with a few small things. But I think those decks will fall by the wayside. And I think this is going to be a card that you're not really going to see a lot of.
Oh, yeah, you're not. But it's just, like I said, it's a mind game card when it comes to Ivory Knight. And plus, if anything, if I want to, I can also give it to my Wicker Flame Burn Bristle.
Oh, yeah.
Stay alive and just...
Oh, yeah, there are all sorts of little combos you could potentially pull off, but not realistically.
Realistically,
like,
no.
They'd be cool if you could do that. Like, I would take a 10/10 Wicker Flame Burn Bristle, but you know, it's not really going to happen. And I think everybody kind of knows and expects that. So, but I'm waiting for Toast to make a deck that revolves around Dinosize. So.
Oh yeah.
So next up, we have the Rogue Legendary, which is Sherazin Corpse Flower, which is a 4-cost 5/3 with the Death Rattle, go dormant, play 4, and then you have to play 4 cards in a turn to revive this minion. It's okay, I guess. I mean, 5 attack is pretty threatening, but it also has 3 health. It could probably do some damage if your opponent can't kill it. But my thing is, if it goes dormant, there's not a lot of rogue decks. Yeah, rogue can combo, but how many rogue decks can really pull off a card combo with at least 4 cards consistently? There are a few decks that could do it. Miracle being one of the biggest decks that'll be able to pull this off. But even Miracle Rogue is not going to be able to consistently bring this thing back. It might be able to bring it back 3, maybe 4 times if they're lucky. And I'm not sure if Miracle Rogue is really going to want to do that. If so, it's going to have to completely change how it plays. And another problem it's going to have is when it does revive Sherazin, Sherazin is not going to be able to attack, so it has to keep Sherazin alive to be able to do any damage. Plus, when Sherazin is dormant, actually, you said these tokens are not going to take up minion space, right?
As far as I am aware, yes.
If the tokens do not take up minion space, this card is actually a little bit better. If they do take up minion space, this might be problematic. I guess we're going to have to wait and see with how that mechanic's going to work. But even then, I think there'll be a few decks that might try running this. I think Miracle might try running this initially. We're going to have to see if Miracle decides it wants to run it in the long run. But there's actually not a lot of rogue decks I can think of that can make really good use out of Sherazin. And your opponent's going to keep this dead. So it might end up just being completely useless in the long run. But who knows? I don't see this as a meta-defining card. I don't see it as a bad card necessarily. I just see this as a kind of meh card. Because you would have to have a deck that can just consistently bring it back. And I really can't see Rogue doing that.
I keep wrestling with myself with this card.
Yeah, I know I was a downer and I pretty much brought reality into play. Sorry, dude.
No, and that's fine. But I still keep wrestling with it. Because I do see it as a meta-defining card. Because, number one, it's going into that 4 slot. With Rogue, it's losing its big force drop minion of Tomb Pillager. And you're right. Your opponent has to keep it dead or at least react to it. Which is great to me. Because if they are focused and are at least trying to throw responses at something that will keep reviving, that lets my other minions run free. So, like, when Shaku was revealed, people called it a garbage and trash card. People still are saying that Shaku is a garbage / trash card. And I look at those same people, and I see Shaku being ran in many of the Winter Championships. Hell, I'll probably get to see Shaku in the Bahamas. Because I looked at the deck list, and I saw him roughly 6 to 8 times. And people called him garbage, quote unquote. If he was such garbage, as people would say, why is he being ran? And why is it that these people who are playing at a high level of competitive Hearthstone, why are they running it? So, for people who may be looking at this card and calling it garbage right out the gate, you're fucking sleeping on it. And stop it. Because this card has a high chance of being another Shaku. Of just being good. And actually being ran. And being so problematic that you're frustrated and have to figure out an answer for it. So, and plus there's also the reality fact of, like Paul mentioned, your opponent keeping it down and just you having to figure out a way to revive it, and how many different ways does Rogue have to actually revive it. Miracle Rogue is one of the big ways, and it's just... this is the one time I will stand firm, and I will say that Sherazin Corpse Flower will be a meta-defining card for Rogue. And I will stick by my gun on that.
Yeah, I'm going to continue to disagree. Mainly to counter some points, you brought up Tomb Pillager.
Yeah.
And Tomb Pillager is a lot more useful. Tomb Pillager gave you a coin upon dying. And coins for rogues are a lot more useful than a card that goes dormant, potentially takes up a slot until you can play four cards in a turn, and then even then it just wakes up and you have to wait until your next turn to do anything with it. That's completely different power scale wise. Also, the fact I never called this card garbage.
I never said you did.
I don't think it's bad. I think it's okay. I have thought all of the Rogue Legendaries for the past few expansions have been okay. I thought Zeril was okay. I thought Shaku was okay. But I do not, and I still do not think, any of them are meta-defining. Shaku is not meta-defining. Zeril was not meta-defining, because you can actually play the deck without Zeril. Sherazin might be played a little bit, but it's still not going to be meta-defining. It's an okay card. It might even end up being good, but it's not going to define the meta in any sense whatsoever. So, that's my thoughts on it. I think Rogue has actually been getting some pretty solid legendaries. They just end up being niche at worst and okay at best. They're nothing that really blows you out of the water.
I know we're at Swamp King Dread. Before we get there, how are we doing on time?
It's the last card.
The last card we have is Swamp King Dread. It is a 7 cost, 9/9 Hunter Legendary. With the effect, after your opponent plays a minion, attack it. I loved getting to see the Murloc Tiny Fins being thrown at Swamp King Dread.
You monster!
That was just funny because it's just like you can see people going, "Oh no, you monster!" That was hilarious.
You monster, you do not belong in this world.
I do, thank you very much. But, anyway. Swamp King Dread. I'm going back and forth on this card right now. Because I see it, and I'm like, that's a powerful stat line for a 7/7. And its effect is pretty damn nifty. And I still wonder about the Dirty Rat combo alongside him being able to pull out an opponent's minion and then knock.
It won't kill it. The card text says plays, not summons. If you Dirty Rat with this thing on the board, you're not going to kill that minion.
So at that point, I put this card.
The big question is, I think is a lot of people are wondering is if your opponent Dirty Rats plays Dirty Rat and it pulls out Swamp King Dread, does Swamp King Dread then kill Dirty Rat?
That is another fair question.
There's some evidence that it might, but no one knows for sure. That's the only one. That's the only interaction that's up in the air. We're probably going to see a Toast video on it. But as far as having Dread on the field and then you play Dirty Rat, it's not going to work that way. It's the same thing as the reason why it's not going to be a Jade counter either, because Jades are summoned, not played. So yeah, it's not going to counter Jades. Sorry.
Sorry guys, it's not going to be your Jade counter.
It's not going to counter Jades. It's not going to counter the Nether Portal. It will counter things that you play out of your hand. But other than that, if it appears any other way, sucks to be you.
I want to say that this card is, at least design-wise, it's good. But as far as it's being constructed, I don't think it's gonna. And that's just me. Well, what do you think?
It's an interesting design. I kind of like this card. It may actually see play in a mid-range Hunter deck. A lot of people say, well, Control Hunter, but Control Hunter really isn't a thing. If Control Hunter becomes an archetype, then yeah, I could see Dread being played. But Hunter as a class wants to play the aggro game. It can play the mid-range game if you really wanted to. But for the most part, it wants to rush space. Dread kind of plays contrary to that. Like I said, it could really work depending on what kind of deck you're building, but that deck is going to have to be more mid-range than aggressive. And we really don't see a lot of Hunter decks do that. I don't think you're going to see this card too often. And if we are going to see it too often, that's probably because we're going to see it'll be in some mid-range builds. But again, is that something Hunter really wants to do? So it's interesting. I think this will be this is going to be a rare occurrence. I think you're going to see this card every once in a while, because I think mid-range Hunter might try making a comeback with this card, but I think it's going to be few and far between. It has a higher chance of appearing than King Crush does. Let's just put it that way.
And you know what? If anything, I look at this and then I think about the whole ideal of Dirty Rat, and it's like, just Dirty Rat. I ain't talking to just Swamp King Dread. Ah, shit! I wasn't expecting to pull that one.
Yeah, it will be interesting. Again, I'm with you, Eddie. I don't think it's going to see a lot. I don't think it's going to see a lot of constructed play. Personally, I think it's probably going to see more play than you think it will. but I think it's still going to be a very rare. It's only going to be run in a mid-range hunter deck. And again, they're probably going to be playing that in between their Savannah High main and their Call of the Wilds. But I think that I think they might include it just because it might give them some breathing room in the meantime. So yeah, I think mid-range only you'll see it. In any other sort of hunter deck, it's not coming. It's not going to happen. They want to kill you too quickly, and high main is on the higher end of their scale. So yeah, I don't think we're going to see a lot of it. I would love to be proven wrong because this is a kind of a cool card, but I don't think we're going to see a lot of this card.
I would love to be proven wrong as well, just to kind of like shake things up.
Well, we got through the announcement at least.
We did, and now that the floodgates, of course, are open, we're already behind.
Well,
no!
That's how things work. We're going to be going weekly, and probably there'll be multiple videos in the last week. That's just how it works.
If anything, I may talk to you about speeding up production.
And that's the way the cookie crumbles.
It is. But if you liked what we discussed, definitely like, comment, subscribe, all that good jazz.
Well, we'll see you next time.